So you have a unique vantage point on this too, I think, being in the position that you're in, where, like you said, a lot of the nonprofit organizations that United Way is serving as a conduit for funding in different
Mhm.
ways and coordinating funding even from other places as well,
Yep.
um, are based in zip codes in Washtenaw County that a lot of people who think about Washtenaw County have never even been to or heard of, right? Because Washtenaw County is so strongly associated with Ann Arbor, which is so strongly associated with the University of Michigan.
Mhm.
And it's, I think many students, certainly, but I think even a lot of faculty, um, never get outside Ann Arbor when they're in Washtenaw County. It's like you're there and then you're on the highway to the airport or something, and it's
Yeah.
kind of it. Um, And I think, a lot of the because of the divide in wealth and the inequality in the county, a lot of the donor base comes from Ann Arbor, I would guess, in terms of where donations come from. And how do you think that say students specifically, but really
Yeah.
anyone, what is a way to sort of come into the University of Michigan or into Ann Arbor in a way that is respectful of the realities of the county and how to sort of go about expanding the perspective of what it means to live in this county and what the position in Ann Arbor is relative to elsewhere. I guess just what would be sort of some of your, I don't know if I want to say recommendations, but how do you
Okay.
see the opportunities for students to broaden their perspectives in a way that is helpful and not harmful, I guess?
Yeah. That thanks for asking that. So in Washtenaw County, US 23 is kind of an economic divide, right? So a lot of times when we're talking in the community, whether we're at a company or at a function or wherever we might be presenting, which is we try to be everywhere, we say if you are a child born in at St. Joe's Hospital, whether your parents turn right or left out of the driveway greatly determines the quality and the opportunity in your life. Children in 48197 and 98 or BIPOC infants are 4 times more likely to die than a white infant in Washtenaw County. That's horrendous, given that we are a wealthy community overall, um, or the average. Let's say the average income is higher than a lot of other places in the state of Michigan. Um, your life expectancy, if you live in Chelsea or you live in Ipsy, is very different. Your race determines sometimes, if you are a Hispanic male, you have a 17-year less life expectancy than a white male in our community. So it's very real. The divide is very real. And I think it's important to think about that. So students come in from all over the country, all over the state as well. And the best way to get to know the community that you're living is in the easiest way is to volunteer.
Mm.
Um, and there's a Student United Way on campus. And so if you're interested in learning more about connecting with the broader community, you can contact the Student United Way on campus. Or if you're already in a great group, like I'm sure there's probably 2,000 groups, right, on campus,
So
2,000 student groups at least.
probably about, yeah, something like that.
Well, your student group can go to volunteerwashtenaw.org. Um, there's over 200 opportunities, even during COVID. We used to be higher than that, but we still have about 200 opportunities listed through about 100 different agencies. So you can look at everything and say, I'm really into early childhood. Where can I work with students? I can only work on Saturdays. I only can volunteer on Saturdays. Tell me those. We have so many different filters that you can find something to connect with. And we've included arts and environment on the volunteerwashtenaw.org site so that we try to meet everybody's sweet spot. And the reason we do that is because we want people to volunteer. This organization was built on volunteers. Nonprofits in general are built on volunteers. We have volunteer boards, we have volunteer committees finance, HR, communications committees. And we don't care where you volunteer. We want you to be connected. So it doesn't have to be United Way. It can be any organization because they all need help. And I think it's really good for students to seek out information if they're interested in something. What I find with not only not students singularly, but with general population is in England, they have a phrase and it's mind the gap. And it literally tells you to not fall in the 1 foot space between the platform and the subway car, right?
Hmm.
And they mind the gap is everywhere. And I loved that analogy when I first heard about it because I've taken it to heart and I try to mind the gap. Because so many times throughout life, if we don't have the information, we're in the gap, we fill it with assumptions and with
Mm.
our own experiences. And we fail to find out the whole story or the other side of the story. So we just pour everything we know into that gap. And therefore, we have the answer and we're smart and we can move on. When really, we don't have the answer at all.
Right.
Like we have literally fallen into the gap and we have filled the gap with ignorance, myself included, which is why I'm always constantly stopping, to ask why. So that's what I'm asking students to do. I remember we met, I think it was the first or second cohort where students were proposing um, different activities or projects to us, and we were giving feedback at your request, to
Yeah.
what they thought they were doing. And I can remember one student, very well meaning, young female, blonde, was going to go. She said, I'm going to go live in a homeless camp for the
Yeah. I
winter
was just thinking of that. Yeah.
so I can learn more about the homeless. And I was like, no, you're not.
Yeah.
Like, for, no, you're not, for so many reasons, like for her own personal safety, for the people that are living in that camp. They don't want outsiders to come in and look at them like sightseeing, right? In a homeless camp. But her intent was good, Jeff.
Sure.
It was not filled with malice. It was not making fun of anyone.
No.
Um,
Yeah.
she just needed to realize there's a lot of different ways to find out. You can volunteer in an agency and learn firsthand all about what the problems are, and so
That's
go ahead.
that. I was just going to say that's been a lesson that we've carried forward into all of the mentoring that we do now with student projects is right from our first workshop talking about, who are the people that you're trying to serve with whatever it is you're doing, right? And some of you are trying to build a, sustainable clothing company and you're selling to people basically like you and fine. You understand your customer pretty well in that case and you can probably just start selling the stuff and start getting the feedback,
Yeah.
There's not a huge risk of harm there. But if you're working with a community whose life experience is very different from your own and there are risks that you don't understand because you don't know the variables and you don't really understand the context, it's oftentimes better to work with an existing organization that is working with that community so that you
Exactly.
can understand, or that population, so that you can better understand how to do it responsibly and effectively.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, certainly any students who want to work on issues of homelessness, we always say there are agencies and organizations locally that would really value you spending your time volunteering, and you can learn
Yes.
a lot from that.